The arrest of Henrry Josue Villatoro Santos, a senior figure within the MS-13 transnational criminal organization, has been publicly framed as a law enforcement victory, a high-value target captured near the heart of the nation's capital. Taken at face value, this narrative portrays a decisive blow against gang leadership. However, a closer examination of the strategic context, operational asymmetries, and federal posture at the time of his capture introduces a darker and more complex possibility that Santos's presence in Woodbridge, Virginia, just 15 miles from Washington, D.C., may have been a deliberate maneuver by MS-13 or its affiliates. Under this alternative hypothesis, the event was not an end but an opening gambit, engineered to provoke, distract, or test federal response patterns. If accurate, it reframes the arrest as part of an asymmetric deception campaign, leveraging the visibility of Santos's capture to trigger specific U.S. behaviors, while concealing broader operational objectives. The geospatial and temporal circumstances surrounding Santos's arrest immediately stand out. The location, within the surveillance envelope of the U.S. Capitol and in a region typically under high federal scrutiny, is incongruent with historical MS-13 fugitive behavior. High-ranking gang figures with logistical and security experience, such as Santos, do not casually place themselves within minutes of national command infrastructure without a compelling operational reason. That this occurred during a known period of FBI decentralization in D.C. compounds the concern, suggesting that the risk associated with Santos's presence may have been calculated, not accidental. Even more telling is the imbalance between the scale of the operation and its yield. The arrest mobilized multiple agencies, FBI, ATF, ICE, state and local law enforcement, yet yielded only a single arrest, no accomplices, and no cascading network effects. In the context of transnational organized crime disruption, this is anomalous. Typically, such high-profile engagements involve coordinated takedowns, seizures, or intelligence windfalls. The absence of these outcomes introduces the possibility that the arrest was either premature or precisely timed by adversarial intent. Further compounding the anomaly is the level of federal visibility surrounding the event. The physical and media presence of senior officials, including the Attorney General and FBI Director, at or near the scene of the arrest, elevated the visibility of key strategic actors. While such appearances may have been intended to project strength, they also created an uncharacteristically dense cluster of federal decision-makers, tactical teams, and surveillance platforms in a known time and location. If MS-13, or a more sophisticated external partner, intended to observe, record, or log federal response behaviors, this arrest offered an ideal intelligence-gathering opportunity. The bait operation hypothesis. MS-13 has evolved under significant international pressure, increasingly adopting paramilitary and asymmetrical strategies. In this light, it is plausible that Santos's presence was not merely risky, it was operationally intentional. His appearance near D.C. in a zone of reduced surveillance density could have served multiple strategic functions. One likely objective would have been to observe federal response protocols in a high-stakes environment. By provoking a rapid, multi-agency reaction, Mississippi 13 could map federal sequencing, jurisdictional handoffs, vehicle patterns, and personnel deployments. Embedded observers or digital spotters may have logged facial identities, communications, or surveillance assets during the incident. A second objective may have involved manipulating media and public perception. The narrative of a clean, high-profile arrest generates celebratory coverage that could serve to obscure simultaneous activities elsewhere, including logistics movement, retaliatory positioning, or the quiet activation of sleeper nodes. The timing and media saturation around Santos's arrest may have functioned as a narrative distraction rather than a resolution. A third and more strategic function may have been to psychologically probe the U.S. Homeland Defense posture. With the FBI undergoing decentralization and other agencies stretched by overlapping missions, Mississippi, the 13th of May, have used this event to measure symbolic and institutional responses. Which leaders appeared? What messages were released? How quickly did posture shift? These signals offer insight into structural readiness, cohesion, and potential fault lines in domestic security. Expanded threat vectors post-arrest. If Santos's arrest was part of a larger deception or triggering event, then significant downstream threats remain. Foremost among these is the possible exposure of federal personnel and assets. Surveillance during the arrest may have provided adversaries with targeting data, ranging from license plates and facial IDs to the presence of tactical equipment and comms patterns. This intelligence could be used in future attacks, intimidation campaigns, or disinformation efforts. A second threat lies in the potential for coordinated delayed retaliation. If Santos's arrest was anticipated, then retaliatory actions may have already been pre-authorized, structured, or staged for activation. These could include targeted violence against law enforcement, symbolic attacks in high-density areas, or asymmetric cyber operations. Third, the post-arrest window may present opportunities for digital exploitation. Communications metadata, law enforcement platforms, and interagency tools could be targeted by cyber actors seeking to exploit confusion or unguarded systems. Any spike in phishing, spoofing, or probing attempts against federal or local law enforcement systems should be interpreted as potentially linked. Lastly, attention must be paid to secondary diversionary operations. The attention given to Santos's capture may be masking broader movement across MS-13's network, especially in logistics, recruitment, or border coordination. Other cells may interpret the arrest not as a threat, but as a cover event under which to act more boldly. Strategic recommendations. In light of this threat model, it is essential that the U.S. response now pivot from retrospective validation to forward-looking vigilance. The first step is a silent internal post-mortem on all assets deployed during the operation. This includes personnel, vehicles, hardware, communications, and tactical patterns. Any identified exposures must be redacted, rotated, or obscured. Secondly, surveillance and human intelligence targeting of MS-13's East Coast structure must be intensified. Behavioral indicators, especially in regions such as New Jersey, Maryland, and North Carolina, should be reviewed for post-arrest changes, financial anomalies, or strategic silence. Sudden quiet may signal preparation rather than retreat. Third, red teaming efforts should be deployed across the intelligence community to model deception-based operations. The Santos case should serve as a baseline for adversarial simulation exercises, focusing on how law enforcement can be baited, distracted, or exposed. Finally, interagency coordination within the D.C. metro area must be reinforced. Given the FBI's current structural transition, a temporary multi-jurisdictional threat fusion hub should be established to rapidly respond to unfolding developments. Transit hubs, soft targets, and federal adjacent zones should be included in a revised threat model that assumes adversary intent to test and exploit domestic vulnerabilities. The arrest of Henrry Santos is undeniably significant, but its strategic meaning remains open. Intelligence doctrine demands that we assess not only what has occurred, but what our adversaries intended it to cause. In this light, the event bears hallmarks of a probing action, an engineered moment meant to draw out systems, expose rhythms, and create false confidence. Our next steps must be guided not by the success of an arrest, but by the unsettling question of what the event was meant to trigger in us. If Santos was a decoy, the real objective may still be moving. In this paradox lies the true complexity of modern domestic security, not just how we capture, but how we interpret what's been captured, and why.